Hey, everybody, it's Ron Johnson, and this is the Ron Johnson Show on Locked On Sports Minnesota. Got a loaded show for you today. We got a lot of content, people. The Vikings, undefeated, but they're back in business. They come off their bye week. Hopefully, Aaron Jones is back because we know that offense looks different. But the Lions without Aiden Hutchinson, but they're still good. They're coming to town. They just blew out the Dallas Cowboys. And I heard something today on the radio, and it threw me off. I was a little bit thrown back, but we'll discuss that. Our partners at NBC Radio, Dan Patrick, some other guys, they were talking about this. So we have to talk about this with the Lions Vikings and what does this mean? Also, the Gophers went to the Rose Bowl, came home with the win. We got that coming up next on the Ron Johnson Show.
Locked On Sports Minnesota Podcast. It's endless Minnesota Vikings talk with the diverse voices of your local experts. Now the Ron Johnson Show. On the field, in the broadcast booth, Ron Johnson is Minnesota sports. He's played with them, hung out with them, and grown up with all the big names in Minnesota sports. They're hanging out with Ron Johnson. It's the Ron Johnson Show on the Locked On Sports Minnesota Podcast. And it starts now.
What a time to be alive. This is the Ron Johnson Show on Locked On Sports Minnesota. I'm your host, Ron Johnson. My producer, Sam Ekstrom, he's going to be joining us in a minute. But everybody, you got to understand what's going on in today's sports in Minnesota. It's a great time to be a football fan. It's a great time to be a basketball fan. Timberwolves are coming back. Lynx are in the WNBA Finals. And we have to talk about all that. But before we jump into the show, I want everybody to know today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Place your first $5 bet and you'll get $200. That's $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Well, as I said in today's show, we have to talk about the Vikings and the Lions game. That is the top of the show. We're also gonna hit on this Gophers UCLA game because a lot of people think it was closer than it should have been, and I'm one of them. I agree. This game should have been, but everybody shows up, and there's some things about UCLA that people did not know, and we have to talk about that as well. And then the Lynx, we got the Daily 3 coming up today. We got TJ Hockenson or Aaron Jones. We're going to talk about them possibly on Sunday. I'm looking forward to this. I got my shoes ready for this week. And normally for those games, I don't like to wear certain shoes, but I'm going to do it for this one. I'll talk about that. And then also we got to talk about college football's biggest takeaways. The Big Ten, it looks a lot different now, and we'll talk about that as well. But as I bring my producer to the show, Sam Ekstrom. Sam, Vikings, Lions. I heard on the radio, I'm going to pay off the teas early. I'm not going to make you guys wait for what I was just talking about. So as I'm driving, dropping my kids off to school early this morning at the 7 a.m. hour, as I do every day, drop my kids off to school every day. I love it. It's a chance for us to just kind of be in the car. We don't say much to each other. Sometimes we talk, sometimes we don't. But today on the way back home is when I kind of get a little quick sports fix before I get in the house and get to work. Sam, here's what I heard. So when the Lions lost, and this is all the better. So on FanDuel, when the Lions lost early on in the season, they were plus 1,200 to win the Super Bowl. And then the Lions start winning and blah, blah. You know, their record is what it is. They were plus 1,000 to win the Super Bowl. Sam, they just beat the Cowboys as if the Cowboys were not on the field. They were doing laterals and flea flickers. And I mean, they were just having fun, a good old time. Big old, what's his name? That reports eligible all the time.
Dan Skipper
reported eligible. I don't know if they were being petty because the last time he reported eligible, there was some drama.
Yes,
in the Dallas-Detroit game, but he reported eligible in this game, of course. So I don't know if he was paying homage to past games or if this is just part of the offense because they did some trickery. There was a hook and ladder, and I think that was a lineman that caught the hook and ladder. Like a lineman catches the hook and ladder. That's crazy.
Yes, the left tackle.
So I didn't actually see that full play. So is that the Dan Skipper came in and Penei Sewell was the eligible? Like what
different plays. So I think the Sewell one got wiped out due to a flag. Sewell was the trailer on the hook and ladder, took the ball and got either into the end zone or close to the end zone, got called back. didn't count. And then Skipper, different play. Skipper lines up wide as a eligible wide receiver, and then he did not get targeted, but he was there. And then I want to say they threw it to another lineman earlier in the game. Like the linemen were getting heavily involved in this 38-point blowout.
So Vikings Lions keys, first of all. So going back to this before I want to make sure I pay it off. So now, Sam, do you know what the odds are for the Lions to win the Super Bowl?
Spoiler alert, I looked.
Okay.
I looked, and they're like fourth likeliest in the league now.
Yep. And they went from plus 1,200 after a loss to plus 1,000 to now plus 850. So their odds to win the Super Bowl, and I think it's going down to like 1 in 4. 1 out of 4 is what it's going to go down to, is what they think after they beat the Vikings. And that's what they said. They said after they beat the Vikings, they're going to probably go to, plus 400 at that point. Like it's just the Lions show. They're running away with the NFC. But what they did not say, Sam, and I listened. I stayed in the car a little bit longer. I didn't come in the house. I wanted to hear the rest. At no point, Sam, did they ever say, but if the Lions lose. At no point did they say, but if the Lions lose. So everybody is just putting this Lions team as the best team, or one of, but the best team in the NFC. And they're giving them basically, hey, it's your show. You guys have it. You're it. We are not worthy. And the Vikings don't really have a chance because, again, everybody's saying the Vikings are fool's gold. And so you look at the season so far for the Detroit Motor City Kitties. You have early on, and so a lot of these too, I was for it. So you look at their preseason, because I think preseason doesn't matter because the Giants beat the Lions in the preseason. The Lions then go and beat the Chiefs. And remember, everybody was like, oh, this is a repeat of blah, blah, and this is showing that it doesn't matter. It's preseason. Lions then go beat the Steelers in preseason. So the fact that the Giants beat the Lions in preseason means absolutely, that shows you the preseason means absolutely nothing because the Giants are not good right now.
Wipe it away. Yep.
But they start off the season 1-1. They beat the Rams, which they should have, and they lose to the Buccaneers, who's a really good team. Like the Buccaneers are showing they're a really good team. The Buccaneers also beating the Lions, showed the world they're a really good team. And at that point, the Lions odds were plus 1,200. Well, then they beat the Cardinals. Cardinals are a good team. They kill the Seahawks, and the Seahawks are a good team. And then they go to plus 1,000. Well, then they absolutely destroy the Cowboys, Sam, and now they're at plus 850. As you said, they have a 1 in 4, like their top 4 chance to win the Super Bowl right now. With that said, now I didn't look at the rest of this because I haven't done my research yet, but I want you to tell me, where were the Vikings in this Super Bowl odds? Undefeated at that, and number 1 in the NFC North. How far behind are they from the Lions and winning the Super Bowl?
Yeah, the Vikings are 7th likeliest in the current odds, and they are where the Lions used to be at plus 1,200.
Okay.
So so in the NFC, it's the Niners, Ron. The Niners are still the likeliest team on FanDuel to win the Super Bowl. Then the Lions, then the Vikes.
They're saying they have a 7.7% chance, the Vikings do, to win the Super Bowl right now with the current odds. And if you look at what is going on, so I don't know if I want to call it recency bias or history bias or just, you know what, this is about the better. So who's putting the most money down? Because we know, honestly, Vegas doesn't really know. Like, honestly, they're just going with what everybody's putting down. They're going with what people are saying out there. They're going with who's likely to do what. And so you look at the Vikings odds right now. They were the favorites against the Giants. They won. The 49ers were the favorite. Texans were the favorite. Packers were the favorite. They won those as well. Then the Vikings were the favorite over the Jets, -2. They won that. Now the Vikings right now, Sam, and I don't know if this has changed, but right now it has the Vikings at -2.5, which that means they're the underdog, right?
Against the Lions? No, the Vikings are favored in that game. That is
-2.5. Yeah, so -2.5 means they're the favorite.
Yeah,
the odds thing throws me off every time. I'm not a big bettor. I do dabble, as people know, in FanDuel, but I'm not a big time bettor. So the Vikings are the favorite, -2.5 to the Lions right now. So the fact that they're the favorite, but the Lions have a better chance to win the Super Bowl, I'm just confused. Now here's where it gets crazy, Sam. The Rams the Rams are the favorite against the Vikings. That makes no sense. How? How are the Rams? Now, we know that can change. This is like as of now. But how, Sam? How is that possible? And then you look at going down the list. They have the Vikings as the favorite over the Colts. They have yeah, this is stupid. This has to be, let me see when this article was, because maybe I'm on an old article. No, this is October 15th. Never mind. Sam.
Today.
Sam, this is why I don't care anymore. Sam, the Jaguars are the favorite right now. How? Their opponent's power ranking is 29th. Are they just saying because if the Vikings happen to be 8-1, they're just saying the other shoe is going to drop? Like, how are the Jags the favorite? Right now, you could put money on the Vikings because they are the underdog against the Jags, at the Jags. How?
That's hard to believe.
That's what it says. I'm looking at it. It's Fox Sports. I'm looking at their article on foxsports.com, updated October 15th, which is today, because they keep updating this. They have the past odds and they have the current odds. Sam, the Jags right now are the favorite. They also have the Vikings the favorite over the Titans. They have the Bears the favorite, and then they have the Vikings the favorite over the Cardinals. I don't know if this is clickbait because I've already clicked on it, so there's no reason to there's nothing that would have made me click even further. This just shows Sam, that people have no faith in the Vikings, and that's probably why the Lions got what they got this morning as far as, no shot. It was like no shot for the Vikings, even though the Lions are the underdogs, no shot for the Vikings to beat them. They just think I was listening to three different people. I think Kyle Brandt was one of them. I forgot the other one, but they're like, the Lions are a complete team. They have two running backs. I put them in the power category with the Ravens, and I forgot the other team they said, but they're like the Ravens because they can run the ball and they can throw the ball, and they have two running backs, and they have a quarterback, and they have a head coach that's super serious about life and, about sports. And so they're in the power. They're a power team now. The Lions are officially a power team the way they did the Cowboys. Nobody gave the Vikings a shot. So that's why I'm glad. Like, even though they're the favorite by the bettors, none of the experts are giving the Vikings a shot. Now, also, we've learned this now, Sam. A lot of the national media knows if they go against the Vikings fans are one of the loudest groups on Twitter, and they are going to come to bat and call these people idiots and dumb and stupid. And so people love to rile up the crowd a little bit. And I think that's part of this. But Sam, they have the Jags. That's the one. If we're looking for locks, a season lock, and I hope I don't come back. This doesn't come back. We have to play this clip in a couple weeks and remember when you said the Jags can't beat the Vikings, and the other shoe drops and the Vikings go 8-2. Because that's the only reason I can think of the Jags being the favorite is because if you look at the Vikings 15-1 season, they shouldn't have lost to the Buccaneers that year. And so maybe this is one of those, they're going to Jacksonville. They're going to be in sunny Florida. In late, it's going to be cold here in Minnesota. It's going to be nice in Florida. The players are going to go out to dinner and just live it up because they're playing a terrible Jags team who probably won't have Doug Peterson on his way back from London because they're staying there. So they're in London for the second time. Or was that the second time already? Did they already do their second game?
I think they've got their second time this week against.
Yeah, okay. I was about to say, I knew they doubled up. So it's like they kind of want to say, look, let's just leave them over there because they're not making money on their own stadium. So but if there was ever a year for them to have fans show up, it's Jacksonville, because we know the Vikings fans, especially for a one-loss team, maybe undefeated still, Vikings fans are going to go down there. Vikings fans are going to go to Jacksonville because it's going to be warm. Greg Coleman's going to have something. November 10th, it's going to be cold here. It's going to be warm there. We're getting ready we got 2 weeks until Thanksgiving. Why not go to Jacksonville? I would love to go to Jacksonville. And also, if you look at the Titans, I think, November 24th is a holiday, Sam. I think a lot of Vikings fans might go to the Bears too, because it's on the road. But I don't want to get off the rails too much. They hate us. They all hate us. But Sam, what are your quick thoughts on that, on the odds? They're giving the Bears a chance. The Bears are the favorites. Jags are the favorite, and the Rams are the favorite of a current 5-0 team.
Yeah, that's curious. I have a suspicion that as the game gets closer and those lines, and a lot of places aren't offering that line yet.
Right. Okay.
I think that once it gets closer, I think that common knowledge and just conventional wisdom will prevail. I think the Vikings will end up favorites in those games unless something drastic happens. Now, Ron, let's talk about the Rams game because that's a lot closer.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think they're going to have Puka and Cooper Kupp? Like, are they going to have their full complement of weapons? Because I could see the Rams at home with their weapons maybe being a slight favorite in that game, maybe, just because Thursday nights are weird. The Jaguars one makes no sense at all. I think that will change when it gets closer.
And Sam, I love when breaking news happens. Do you have the sounder for breaking news? Because we just had more breaking news. Last time we broke news, it was the same team. Davante Adams is finalizing the deal to be traded to the New York Football Jets. Davante Adams headed to the Jets for a conditional third round that could become a second round, according to Adam Schefter. Breaking news. The Raiders are finalizing deal to trade Davante Adams to the Jets. After Aaron Rodgers, so I don't know if you saw this too. Aaron Rodgers hasn't had a 300-yard game since 2021. I forgot what week, like maybe week 6, 2021 or something like that. He hasn't had a 300-yard game. Sam, when he got the ball in the fourth quarter, because I stayed up to watch this game, because I put my bets on the Bills. And so in my wife's pick'ems, I was one off this week, Sam, and the one team I missed was my own team, Sam. I picked the the Commanders to beat the Ravens. I got every other one right. I told my wife, I'm like, unless the Packers, because I for the Packers Cardinals, I told her for me that was a toss-up. So I told her to pick, like any toss-ups, I tell her to pick. But I picked the ones where I'm like, look, I know this is a win. And I think she said she did pick the Packers. But Sam, the Ravens, I almost went with the Ravens, but I'm like, you know what? Jaden Daniels is playing good right now. Like, he looks good. It was a close game. It wasn't a blowout. It was a close game. So it could have went either way. It was just my luck. If I picked the Ravens, then the Ravens would have lost. So good for the Ravens to get the win because I went against them. But Sam, I picked the Bills, so I wanted to make sure it happened. 287 yards on his last drive. He only needed 13 yards, Sam, to get his first 300-yard game in like 3 years. He needed 13 yards. He was on like his 20 or something. I can't remember where. First play, penalty. Next play, penalty. He throws a pass. He gets to 294. Sam, his next pass is intercepted because Mike Williams falls to the ground. He threw the ball. Mike Williams is wide open. Nobody's around him. They're running seam. They ran like a post seam. Nobody covered the seam. The middle vertical, it wasn't really a post. It's more like a goal. We call it a goal post. You just run to the goal post. So the one guy cleared goal post. Next guy ran up the seam, which is Mike Williams. Mike Williams wide open. Nobody's guarding him. Aaron Rodgers throws back shoulder because he's like, look, don't go in towards the safety. Nobody's over here. Mike Williams tries to stop Sam because the ball is coming on his back shoulder, and he slides to the ground. And number 7 for the Bills makes a ridiculous play. And Taylor Rapp had a great game too at safety. Him and DeMar Hamlin, they were all playing great back there. But number 7 gets the interception. Aaron Rodgers is 6 yards short of a 300-yard game. Aaron Rodgers probably goes to the locker room, no head coach anymore. He's looking at all these assistant coaches. He goes to his GM, probably goes to Woody Johnson, the owner. Hey, you got to get me my boy, man, because Davante would have called that in the seam. We still have a chance, and they do. That's crazy. They still have a chance. That's what people don't get. Like, this trade is all for naught. It's not all for naught. They have a chance. Like, they're not far off in their conference and their because in that AFC, it's not what it used to be. And so they still have a chance to make the playoffs. So that's the breaking news. Aaron Rodgers will get Davante Adams finally. It's basically it's the Packers because he has Lazard. He has what's his name now? Davante Adams. Wasn't there? Oh, Randall Cobb's gone though. Randall Cobb did
Garrett Wilson.
Well, Garrett Wilson wasn't a Packer. I was just saying like Packer teammates.
Got it.
No, he had kept like telling the front office who to get. I'm surprised he has an actual Robert Tonyan from the Vikings. He's been nonstop just getting guys. So, but back to the keys real quick because we spent a lot of time on the Vikings and their chances. But keys to the game, Sam, for me, I've been watching a lot of Jared Goff film. I did a film breakdown last week. I probably just put it out myself and tag Locked On Sports and do one sometime this week with a quick breakdown. But the basic thing of the breakdown with the Lions Vikings, Sam, is Jared Goff, when they motion and they run some of these routes, if he understands the coverage, he will pick you apart. If you can confuse him a little bit, because there was a couple of times where he got confused, he is going to throw an interception if you go back and watch the Buccaneers game. So the one thing, he'll throw some bad passes, he'll make some mistakes. So when you look at that, when you look at where they possibly are, what possibly is going to happen, when you think about who's next, what's next for this team, I think the Minnesota Vikings have to, and I don't know if they can do this without Aaron Jones, they have to be able to run the ball. And I think that's the scary part about this game. If they can't run the ball on the Lions, because now you don't have an Aiden Hutchinson, so maybe passing is a little bit easier because you don't have a true dog coming off the end. It's going to be tough. It's going to be tough for the Vikings if they can't run the ball. Whether it is Ty Chandler, whoever, you got to be able to run the ball on the Lions to keep their linebackers and safeties honest. Because if they're not, and they can just drop back in coverage, then they got you. They can play their tough ball where they try to get 4 to 5 to get after you, and they just play coverage behind it. So that's my key for the Vikings to beat the Lions. For the Lions to beat the Vikings, honestly, you gotta decipher Brian Flores. If you can't decipher Brian Flores, you're screwed. I don't know. What are your thoughts on this keys to this game?
Yeah, trenches. It'll be one in the trenches. Lions, you might say, are a top 3 rush offense in the league with Montgomery, who they just extended, and Jahmyr Gibbs, who's super efficient and flashy. And then the Vikings rush defense has been top 3 in the league in pretty much every category. The Lions offensive line will be the best test the Vikings have faced. They'll bring in Dan Skipper, like you said, the extra eligible lineman, and they're going to try to run the football. So if the Vikings can stop the run, I like their chances. Detroit has scored 89 points in the last 2 games because they've been so balanced on offense. The Vikings have to make them imbalanced in order to have a chance.
Well, when you look at this, like I go back to the Buccaneers game, you always go back to the one loss to see how you can defeat an opponent. You do want to look at their wins too. You want to see how good they are. But in the one loss, 307 yards. So again, Jared Goff's going to get his, but he threw 2 interceptions. So that's the way I look at it. It's like if you can figure out how to make him see something that's not there, if you can make him think the coverage is something else and you can get to a different coverage. And everybody knows now, after 5 weeks, everybody knows just because a safety's in the box and a cornerback is deep doesn't mean it won't be covered too. And I think that's going to be the trouble is the one that I think really is going to confuse people if Flores can get to this, and I don't know who can do it and how they can do it. If they can play cover 2 man, but the cornerbacks are safeties and the safeties are playing man coverage, because in 2 man, it's not true zero. So you just have to chase a receiver knowing you have help over the top. So you kind of play it in a trail position. And I think that's the next evolution of Brian Flores' defense is playing like a 2 man, because when you have safeties down low, corners up top, it looks like true 2 because you're like, look, these guys they're not gonna go man with their safeties. Like, let's play cover 2. All of a sudden, you see Harrison Smith or Josh Metellus or Cam Bynum, because Cam Bynum, and that's the thing, Cam Bynum did play safety or corner in college. He is a cornerback by trade. He is a cornerback by birth. He's just been evolved into a safety. If you can have Cam Bynum come down and play cover 2 man as a corner, and he's not you really are just out there confusing people. And that's when you can get the quarterback to throw maybe the corner route thinking it's true 2 and it's 2 man and you're trailing and you can't bind them. Now you get an interception. So keep an eye on that, because if that happens, just come back and give me credit for it, because I feel like Brian Flores has some tricks up his sleeve. You don't last as long as you lasted if you don't have additional things ready to go. And I think that's Brian Flores has had the luxury. And that's why I think in the second half of games, why they've given up so much is because he gets so far out. He's like, all right, let's stop putting it out there. Let's just go back to vanilla. And maybe that's the key too, is put your foot on their throat for 60 minutes. Don't sit back and think something else. Don't try to, get back and think, oh, we're going to do it this way. No. Keep doing it. Keep going after them. Keep coming up with new ways. It's okay to put it on film for this one, because this Lions game is the toughest of the stretch. Like, this is the toughest game on their schedule of this next stretch. That first 5, that one I thought they'd be 3-2. Possibly 4-1, but I was thinking maybe 3-2. This next 5, they easily have a chance to go 4-1 with a loss to the Lions. But now, as good as they are, they can stay undefeated. But we got to jump into our next topic. We're going to talk Gophers UCLA coming up. And the Gophers are on a bye week, so we don't have an athlete this week. So we're just gonna chop it up with myself and Sam, and we'll do that afterward from our sponsors.
Guys, listen up. We got a great new partner here at Locked On Sports Minnesota. It's Hims, because intimate moments can happen spontaneously. We always want to be ready so we can perform. Hims provides access to treatments that can help you last longer, giving you that boost of confidence so you can be ready whenever the mood strikes. Hims is changing men's healthcare by providing you with access to affordable sexual health treatments from the comfort of your couch. Hims provides access to a range of doctor-trusted ED treatments like chewable, hard mints, and Viagra and Cialis, and their genetics for up to 95% cheaper. The process is 100% online, so there's no need for uncomfortable doctor's visits. Just answer a few questions on their site, and a medical provider will determine the right treatment option. If prescribed, your medication ships directly to you in discreet packaging for free, no insurance needed, and one low price covers everything from treatments to ongoing care. Thousands of trusted subscribers, hundreds of thousands actually. Hims can help you find the ED option that works for you. Start your free online visit today, hims.com/lockedon, hims.com/lockedon for your personalized ED treatment options, hims.com/lockedon. The products mentioned are chewable compounded products, which are not approved by or verified for safety or effectiveness by the FDA. Prescriptions require an online consultation with a healthcare provider who will determine if appropriate. Restrictions apply. See website for details and important safety information. Subscription required. Price varies based on product and subscription plan.
Well, now it's time for a little Gophers UCLA talk. Bottom line, Sam, UCLA was not an easy opponent for the Gophers. They're not an easy opponent, period. Like what a lot of people didn't realize is UCLA football got kind of thrust into a weird thing. So fast forward, looking for a new coach. They have some options out there. We know PJ Fleck was one of them. He went out there and interviewed as well. According to PJ, it just wasn't the right fit, wasn't the right time. So he returned to Minnesota. When you think about where they are as a team, their only win was the first game against Hawaii, which was, I guess you'd call it week 0 or, the August schedule. But they played number 16 Indiana. They played number 8 LSU. They played number 2 Oregon. And then they played number 3 Penn State. That's unfortunate. Like that is just, that's like just punch after punch. It's like, you're a boxer and you finally get into the heavyweight division and you're like, you know what? I'm good enough. Let me go to the heavyweight division. And right out the gate, you get thrown into a juggernaut of heavyweights where you're like, wait, you guys are still fighting? And you get Muhammad Ali in his prime. Then you get Mike Tyson in his prime. Then you get Evander Holyfield in his prime. And then all of a sudden, this little guy walks in the building, Floyd Mayweather. And you're like, oh, you're not a heavyweight. Okay, let's go. And you're going toe-to-toe with Floyd Mayweather. You're like, look, I got you. And then all of a sudden, he throws just a knockout blow. At the end of the game, interception by Coy Parrish. And so for Minnesota, really good fighters. I put them as a Floyd Mayweather. I wouldn't put them as a heavyweight like Penn State and Oregon and LSU. But UCLA, I don't think people realize that. They beat the one unranked team, which is Hawaii. And then they faced ranked after ranked after ranked after ranked team. Sam, they had to play number 2 and number 3. Well, at the time, they were 3 and 4. Oregon was 3. Penn State was 4. But can you imagine playing number 2 or number 3 and number 4 at the time? The third best team in the country and the 4th best team in the country back to back. Like, what do you tell your players? Back to back. Like, you literally just have to say, like, and LSU, top 10. You play 3 top 10 schools. You play 4 top 20 schools. So for people that didn't know that, that's why UCLA was 1 and 4. They weren't a bad team. They just had to play some people. And so I think they've been prepared because now the Gophers game for them look closer. And now I think for Rutgers looked really good. Rutgers showed they could bleed now. And so for the Gophers, UCLA, I think that was the biggest thing is that the Gophers stuck to it. UCLA had them, but the Gophers have learned how to win big games. UCLA or USC helped them. USC was definitely a big helper to say, look, no matter what the score is, no matter what's going on, we have a chance. And so the last drive, I love the play call by Greg Harbaugh on the pregame show. I said it's going to come down to Schlesinger, the linebacker, versus Darius Taylor, running back. If Schlesinger's the X factor, how can he stop Darius Taylor? He had a chance in the very last play, couldn't get it done. Darius Taylor runs a great route, and they win the game. So I don't know, Sam, what you thought about it, but I do know UCLA is not a bad team. They just are unfortunate to who they have played. Down the stretch, they have no more ranked opponents. So hopefully, and they also got a gift at the end of the season, at least, to maybe end the season on a high note because they schedule Fresno State for the end of the year versus the beginning, kind of like the SEC does, where they always have like a non-conference game in the middle of the season to give them like a light boost before they have to go play the rest of their SEC season. They treat it like an NFL bye, honestly, when they play like Chattanooga State
Yeah.
And not say Fresno State is a good program, but I will say that's a nice, probably relax, because before Fresno State, they have to play USC, even though USC is unranked now because they lost, unfortunately, to Minnesota. They took them out the rankings. But then they turned around and they got to play Fresno State. So you got UCLA, they got Washington, they got Iowa in the bottom three, and Nebraska, Sam. Like, their schedule doesn't get any easier. Like, they'll be lucky to win 2 games this season, which Rutgers could be one, but it might not be. They got Nebraska, that's probably a loss. They got Iowa. Iowa's going to run the ball down their throat. We know that. Washington is good. USC is really good, and that's their battle in LA. And then you got Fresno State. So they'll be lucky to win 2 games. And so I could see why PJ Fleck didn't want that job. But I don't know, Sam. What do you think?
Yeah, tough climate to be a rebuilding program. And that's why the Gophers are somewhat fortunate that they're not in that position, because you don't want to have to be playing catch up with these heavyweights in the Big Ten, as you said. I want to give the Gophers some credit, because in that Iowa Big Ten opener, they got thrashed in the second half. They came out of halftime, weren't ready, got thrashed. The next 3 games, Ron, they have closed unbelievably well at Michigan, against USC, and now against UCLA. They've been a second half team. And that's what it's all about. Like, Fleck has kept them playing. He's kept them engaged. And now he's got the season back on track, where now you look at this Gophers schedule, you project it out and you say, okay, Maryland, winnable at home. That could be 5-3. Tough one at Illinois. Very tough game. Illinois with another win, very close against Purdue, but Illinois keeps winning. And then Rutgers, Penn State, Wisconsin. You've got a chance to get 7 or 8 now. Like, you certainly have bowl eligibility in your sights, because you've won a couple big games late, and you honestly should have beaten Michigan too if you get the onside kick. So there's hope now for the season. You go to the bye, you're feeling really good, kind of like the Vikings. You feel like you're on a roll. You want to keep playing it for the Gophers. And now they go into a bit, I'd say, more forgiving portion of the schedule.
Yeah, I mean, and you look at, Illinois 22, Penn State 3. I think those are the 2 tough ones. When you look at Maryland, Rutgers, Wisconsin, those are winnable. I also think Illinois is winnable if the Gophers can run the ball. Like, as long as everybody stays healthy, the way this offensive line is moving the ball, the way Greg Harbaugh has kind of started to figure out, and the way Max Brosmer, like, I don't think anybody assumed he would throw the ball the way he's throwing it. He's really good, and he has a lot of control of this offense. And so that's what I look at when I see Penn State and I see Illinois. I see Penn State being the toughest. The best part about it is they're getting them, the weekend before the holiday. And so there's not going to be too much hoopla, but I'm guessing at Minnesota, that number 3, if Minnesota, so let's just say Minnesota beats Maryland, they beat Illinois, and they beat Rutgers. If they win 3 straight coming up and they're 7-3 at that point, I could see game day coming to Minnesota. I could see game day giving them the heads up, like, hey, if this works, because it's still to be determined time, either that or big noon kickoff. Like, I could see big noon kickoff coming back to get, because at that point, I don't see Texas leaving 1, but you never know. College football is weird. I don't see Oregon relinquishing number 2. And Penn State probably still is the 3rd best team in the country. The last time Penn State was top 5, they came here and lost. The last time they were top 5 when I played, they lost at Penn State. So I think the world is on notice about that a top, 5 Penn State team versus Minnesota means absolutely nothing to Minnesota. So I'm looking forward to seeing what that looks like. And if they, if they're still number 3, I could easily see Big Noon Sunday or, whatever, ESPN kickoff, because they want that. They want that to be that. Now, the other thing I could see them going, if the Gophers win out, they happen to beat Penn State, I could see them showing up to Wisconsin, because Wisconsin's a great venue. And that Gophers-Wisconsin game, it is a holiday. That's Black Friday, I think, which I'm kind of annoyed at, because I like to shop on Fridays. Also, my daughter has a holiday softball tournament that Saturday. So I'm kind of annoyed, but at the same time, like, the game's not here. So it's basically like me doing the pregame show and then me watching the game anyway from my phone, and then doing the post game from softball. I'll probably end up doing the post game from the softball tournament. But again, that's an 11 a.m. kickoff. And so her softball tournament hopefully is like in the afternoon. We don't know yet, though. We don't know. But I do know with that being the only time they've given them, like, Rutgers is to be determined, which I'm guessing that's just Big Ten Network versus, Fox. Illinois is to be determined. Same thing. Illinois is a ranked team. And then Penn State for sure with that game, because the fact that it's Black Friday, 11 a.m., I'm already be up, Sam. I don't know about you. I'm going to be up shopping on Black Friday, like Thanksgiving night. And then I'm also going to do a little bit in the morning. And then I'm not going to sleep. Like, I'm going to be a crazy person. I'm going to go do the pregame show with no sleep. Like, and I'm going to show up with all my gifts that I bought. I might bring my flat screen TV in there because I love Black Friday shopping. I don't know if you do, Sam, but I love it. I personally, I don't like to buy a lot of stuff. I just like to be out. I don't know why. Like, it's just something about being out at the mall. I know I can get the 50% off deals anywhere. But it's just being out there, being at like some of the stores. I'm not going to give anybody any free promotion, but being out at the stores, getting the 50% off, getting the great TV deals or iPad deals. Like last year, we got our kids iPad or not iPads, headphones. And so this year, our oldest daughter, she already has her gift. I'm not gonna say what it is. I always check out the deals, and then I'm out at the store, Sam, and I'm 50% off. I'm buying it, and then I'm out just to be amongst the people. I go grab some coffee, walk around the mall. It's kind of cool now being 10 years in this, doing shows. Like, people actually recognize me places, and they'll be like, "Hey man, what do you think about the Gophers this week?" So I know with Black Friday, the game's at 11 a.m. So I'll be up at like 5 a.m. at the 6 a.m. at the malls. And I'm just going to people like, "Wait, don't you got to work today?" Yep, I sure do. I'm headed. I'm going home to put my suit on because I just got to be home by 8 a.m. Put the suit on, going to the studio. And I'm going to talk about my Black Friday shopping. I might even videotape it for the Ron Johnson show to play on Tuesday, like going around the malls, interviewing people about the Viking season. There we go. Set the little tripod up, stand as people walk by stores.
He's a man of the people. Man of the people.
That's because I've been wanting to do that at the game, Sam, and it hasn't happened yet. Because it's all every time it happens, it's like, oh, I forget to do it, or it's too cold, or whatever. So yeah, one of these games I'm gonna do it. But I think the mall Black Friday shopping to get Vikings fans feedback, that would be fun. Then I just edit it, send it to you, and boom, that's the second segment of Out and About with Ron Johnson. What are the fans saying? And then I have to get all their information and say, hey, follow us, and then you'll hear your episode on Black Friday. So, but anyway, it's time to jump into the Daily 3, Sam. Sam, really quick, though, I want to get your take on this. I know you already kind of said what's going on with the schedule and everything, but when you think about the schedule with the Gophers, and we'll bring this up Friday too, because we talked about this, a successful season, because I remember we talked about this last time, successful season now. So now that they beat UCLA, 6 wins seems pretty doable. Is 6 wins, though, underachieving now, the fact that they beat UCLA?
Yes, because they've got 5 to go, and I think they can win 3. I think if you finish 2-3 and finished 500, that seems disappointing to me, because you want to beat Wisconsin,
right? You
want to beat Rutgers, you want to beat Maryland at minimum. Those are the games that you probably should win. Then can you steal one more and win 8 games total? But I think to be successful, to say that you salvaged the season, I think you got to go 3-2 to finish.
Well, it's time to do the Daily 3. We got 3 questions. We spent about 2 minutes each today. And Sam, before I jump into this, more breaking news. Aaron Rodgers was interviewed after the game. I don't know if you saw his quote. The interception was not his fault.
Oh, stunning.
Mike Williams ran the wrong route. He wasted no time throwing Mike Williams under the bus for that interception. He said it was a no look up the seam. So I called it. I did call that route. I was like, that looked like a one guy take the safety out. They called it a red line. We just call it a seam vertical. They call it a red line. He said it was a red line route, which means you just stay up the hashes. And he said Mike Williams was running an in-breaking route, which is why he slipped. The ball was headed up the seam, red line. It would have been right to him. Nobody was there. He was wide open. If he just runs and slows down, he catches it. Mike Williams started running an in-breaking route when the ball was thrown, and that's why he slipped. Then he did like a whole hold his head like something was hurting. I don't know what happened there. But yeah, he said it's the little things every single time. That's why we didn't win the game. So he said he ran an in-breaking route. And he says it's got to be on the red line, which is basically the seam. He's got to stay up the hashes. So yeah, the red line is like because you got like train tracks. So yeah, he didn't stay up the hash. He ran it in breaking, and the ball went up the seam. So Aaron Rodgers, and that's why they have Devontae Adams now today, because he's like, you know what, screw this. Devontae Adams would have ran up the seam the right way.
It's pretty hard for Rodgers to cope with having the ball in his hands 3 games in a row with a chance to win and losing every time. I mean, he can't take that accountability. He's got to pass it off on somebody.
And that's why he passed it off there. But now we got to talk about the Lynx. We'll talk about Sunday's Vikings players, and we're going to talk about college football matchups. Coming up next on Daily 3, we'll do that after a word from our sponsors.
And we're brought to you today by FanDuel. NFL fans, when you have a hunch, you can capitalize at America's #1 sportsbook with this great new deal for all new customers. Place your first $5 bet, get $200 in bonus bets, guaranteed, win or lose. $200. That's a pretty nice amount that you can spread across FanDuel.com on the futures, the over-unders, the money lines, whatever you want. FanDuel.com. When you have a hunch, whether it's before the game, whether it's during the game, you can find that live line and lay down some of that $200 in bonus bets that you can get guaranteed with your first $5 wager at FanDuel.com. Make every moment more.
Well, Sam, now it's time for the Daily 3. That's 3 questions, about 2 minutes each. Take it away.
Ron, I know on the Roundtable Friday, you reacted to the epic WNBA Finals Game 1. Well, Game 2 went the Liberty's way, so the series is tied, 1 apiece. Coming back to Target Center, the Lynx can close out the finals if they win 2 at home, Ron. Mm-hmm. They play tomorrow and Friday. Can they get it done?
Sam, they lost 80-66. I just don't know. The Lynx looked really good, and they looked pissed off that they lost the way they lost. Like
Liberty, yeah,
the Liberty. We talked about the Liberty, and with the Lynx after a big win like that, where they have a letdown. I don't think that was so much of a letdown, more so of the Liberty are just good. Like, but I mean, somebody posted this, like, so many times they've been to the finals and they still haven't won one. Is this their year? Like, we know Breanna Stewart, we know all the people on their team. Sabrina just launched her shoes. She has a new shoe, the Sabrina 2, the first unisex women's shoe that men can wear too. So all this stuff, Sam, they look good. The Liberty looks real good. I don't know. So I don't know if the home crowd is going to help. I don't know if being back home is going to help. They get 2 there. But I just don't know, Sam. I don't know. Maybe I'm a captive of the moment, but the Liberty looked really good.
Well, it is. You can say this pretty objectively. The Liberty outplayed the Lynx squarely in both games.
True.
Except for a 5-minute stretch.
Yep.
A 5-minute stretch in Game 1 allowed the Lynx to steal that game. And they're super fortunate. It could easily be 2-0, and it's 1-1. And now you get a boost at home. So I think that the game could change when you're in your home building. You could shoot a little bit better, probably play a little bit better defense. You're in your familiar setting with the backdrop behind the basket. You're going to shoot the ball a little better. I think the Lynx can do this. I think they can close it out at home, and I think that should be their goal, to not go back to New York. So I am calling a Lynx 4-game win in the series. I think that it happens.
Okay. What you got next?
Yeah. There are 2 Vikings that I think at this point are questionable for Sunday. Aaron Jones with the hip, TJ Hockenson coming off of IR. Which is the more important player that needs to play on Sunday for the Vikings?
Oh, Aaron Jones, hands down. Like, they got to run the ball. You got to be able to run the ball. And Aaron Jones in this offense, when you watch the Vikings offense, Aaron Jones is needed. He is much needed. And that's the key to this, is like, you have to be able to run the ball against the Lions. I've talked about this numerous times. When you look at the Lions, what they've given up, who they've played, and, when they played the Rams, wasn't a lot of tight end usage when they played the Rams. And so it's like, does a tight end really affect the line, or, does a tight end really, matter to the Lions? When you look at, the Buccaneers, same thing. Not a lot of tight end usage against the Buccaneers, and they lost that game, and then you move on. Like, there's not a lot of usage. And like I said, the Lions linebackers are really good. You look at the same thing against the Cardinals, not a ton of like usage to a tight end. It wasn't like, McBride came out there and just absolutely killed it, 25 yards and 3 catches. Now, could a tight end have helped? Maybe, because it stretches the field a little bit. It gets the Lions, out of their comfort zone, which is their linebackers like to roam. Same with the Seahawks, absolutely killed them. Jackson Smith and Jigba, Tyler Lockett, DK Metcalf were the top 3. Zach Charbonneau was the 4th. Then you go down to Walker was the 5th receiver. There's not Noah Fant, for the Seahawks, 2 catches. Like, there's not a lot of usage with the tight end. So that's why I struggle to say TJ Hockenson personally. I think it's Aaron Jones. I don't know. What about you?
I think that's the right answer, but I will say that having Hockenson on the field is going to be transformative for this offense.
I think they need one or the other. Like, they got to have one of them, but I think Aaron Jones is the guy.
Yeah, because they've had No production from the tight ends really at all.
None.
This is going to clear up Justin Jefferson, I think, for better matchups. And the Lions are super grabby and penalty prone in the secondary. Like, imagine if they get singled up with Jefferson a handful of times. That could play right into the Vikings' hands. TJ Hockenson, whenever he's come back, whether it's from injury or getting traded to the Vikings, the second he steps on the field, he's ready to produce. He's a production machine. And now he's been practicing, in the London week and now this week. So he's got a little ramp up. He's ready to go. And it's his former team, too. So there's a little extra edge. I think that Hockenson could take this passing offense to a whole new level that could help the Vikings outscore the Lions if they have to. The Lions could score 35. Vikings might be able to keep up.
What's the last one?
Last one, college football on Saturday was epic. We had, I think, 3 games between ranked teams, including Ohio State, Oregon, Ole Miss, LSU. From what you saw on Saturday, what was your biggest takeaway from college football?
The Big Ten is really good, honestly. Like, Oregon was 2 or is 2. Penn State's 3. They were 4. Ohio State was in that. Like, you had 3 Big Ten teams in the top 5. The Big Ten is really good. Like, the SEC, I just feel like, I know they're going to cannibalize each other, but I even think like Oregon, Ohio State, you put them, USC, you put them up against some SEC teams, I think it's a different story now. The Big Ten was always good, but now you add like a juggernaut like, Oregon. I think it just changes the scope of it. And Penn State is really good this year. And they're not flashy. Like, Penn State is not by any means flashy. Their defense is really good. And so it's just like Penn State is like the secret team that is like secretly in the top 4. Nobody's talking about them. It's just like, we're gonna quietly sit in here because Texas, Oregon, Ohio State was getting all the coverage. Nobody talked about Penn State. And now Penn State is on par. They're on par to end up in the top 2 because we still know Texas and Oregon have some big games. So it could be a Penn State at 2 or 1, depending on how they play the rest of the season out. Or the Gophers, the Gophers might have a chance to play Penn State, and they might be the number 1 team in the country at that point. So who knows? But again, I just don't know. What was your biggest takeaway?
Ohio State, Oregon, what an epic football game. The twists and turns. I think it's great to have Oregon in the conference, honestly. I just think it raises the profile even more. It gives you a little more visibility on the West Coast. And I could do that matchup every year. I could watch Ohio State, Oregon every year. I could watch Michigan go out there. Like, Oregon's just a cool venue. So I love having them in the conference. And I thought that was as good a college football game as you could ask for.
The one thing I will say, Dan Lanning purposely with the 12 men on the field thing, because it's a 5-yard penalty and the time doesn't get put back on the clock. I think that's going to be looked at too. Like, the competition committee is probably going to be like, all right, like every time stuff like that gets exposed, and like we know the whole like double timeout thing that Belichick did in order to run the clock out, and that's a penalty on the defense, but the clock just runs. It's like a 10-second runoff because you took a timeout you don't have. I think people, or you called a timeout out of a timeout and you're not allowed to do that. Like, I think the competition committee, this is going to be one of those things where they're like, all right, if you purposely put 12 men on the field, we're putting the time back on the clock, because that's not fair, especially, and it's a gamble though, because if it is a big play, it doesn't matter. So if you do give up, but you're banking on, who cares? So I'm like, why not put 13 guys on the field then and just put everybody deep, put 2 safeties deep, put 2 safeties in the middle, and then just keep hoping they throw little passes 5 yards. Like, I just think they're going to come up with something to be like, look, we got to change the rule on this because that was dumb. But it is what it is. We'll see what happens. We know rules are made to be changed during the college season because they never really know what's going to happen. Like the onside kick with the Gophers in Michigan, was the Gophers should have won that game, and the onside kick should have been theirs. But I'm Ron Johnson. That's Sam Extra. I want to thank you guys. Make sure you guys check out our postcast after every Vikings Timberwolves is coming up. And then, of course, Gophers game. Right after the game, you have your host, you have your analyst. We're there. We're giving you the breakdown right after the game. We're talking in the chat. Make sure you guys check out our postcast and subscribe to YouTube, to Locked On Sports Minnesota, and you'll be able to see whenever we go live. I'm Ron Johnson, Sam Extra. I want to thank you guys and have a great week.